Dear Ajahn, I was told by a Sangha to do things I dislike and face my fear, similar to what you mentioned on watching our pain. I think I am okay with most of it except for my fear of insects and the creepy crawlies. I have an exceptional fear for all of them. How do I overcome them, especially at many forest monasteries where there are countless of them? I don't even dare to go anywhere near them. Well, all I can say is just go to forest monasteries and spend more time there, and then you just gradually get used to them. And insects are all right, really. They sometimes you can just this basic principle of overcoming this kind of fear, rather than sort of more deep-seated fear of death and so on, is just exposure to them and more, just little by little. Say something is over here, and you just allow it to be there, and just be friends with it, and send thoughts of loving kindness. And just for 30 seconds or something before you get up, and make that your goal, to be within a meter of a creepy crawly for 30 seconds, and then you just gradually build from there, and then you say, come here, just to put you down like that. So this is doable, but it's not something you can force yourself to do. Face my fears, have a creepy crawly crawl across my head or something like that, and have it once and for all, and be done with it. You just very, very slowly and gradually increase your tolerance for these things. Has there been a person group designated to write your biography? If so, how can one volunteer? If not, can we start a team to do so? No, no, and no. There's a word for lethologica, inability to remember a word, phrase, coined by Carl Jung. Oh, there's something on the other side. My biography, I will allow it as a TikTok video. So whatever you can manage in the length of time occupied a TikTok video, I will allow. In this era of social media and AI, it's almost unlikely to be seen or heard without building some identities or personal branding on social media. With the practice of non-self, how can we balance the letting go of self-identity while also can be seen or heard? Thank you so much for your wisdom. I once heard, you have to become somebody before you can be nobody. Curious about your thoughts about this. Okay. Well, I think there is like an ethical issue here as well. From for a Dhamma practitioner and taking the fourth precept seriously, then what constraints does that create for promoting yourself, or your brand? If you're trying to persuade people you are something you are not, even putting photographs through filters to make them look more attractive. I mean, that's musawada. I mean, that's lying, isn't it? It's lying about your personal appearance. So I think that for professional reasons, and I understand it's almost impossible to avoid these things, but it's just your soap opera life. You know, how you have your real life and your soap opera life, and you do this stuff, and you know, don't take it seriously. I guess that's the most simple. No, I was saying when we first did the Ajahn Jayasaro Facebook page, then I would check that almost every day just to make sure that it was correct and there were no mistakes, and that I could trust the people who I delegated authority to, and of course you see the likes and dislikes, and that was very interesting to me. Because I noticed that on whatever day there was a photograph of me, then there were many more likes than on other days. So I got in touch with the people and said, look, we need a quota, not more than, say, 2 photographs of me every month, because it's a distraction. So that's looking at likes and dislikes as feedback, you know, and so I had a clear vision of what this Facebook page was intended to fulfill, and that was to provide teachings on every level, from people who are beginners and people who had some understanding and people who are more interested in sort of cultural things and meditation, and so the whole kind of spectrum of Buddhist topics, both of the pariyatti, the more academic side, and the practice side, for people of various levels of experience. So the likes or dislikes were kind of irrelevant in the sense, but it was clear that if I wrote something about, say, filial piety and mothers and fathers and relationship things, then there would be, you know, a lot more likes. And if you write something about the paticca samuppada or something, a lot. But that I didn't, on the basis of that, think, yeah, more mums and dads, less paticca samuppada. You know, it's just, this is the, you know, if I'm going to provide a spectrum and a wide-ranging number of topics, this is the kind of response. So I mean, is it possible to look at it like that in your own social media? You know, what is your goal and what is your purpose for posting these things? Do you have a goal? Is it, you know, to make yourself more well known and sort of more worldly side, or do you have some more serious meaning, and then how to edit and create the posts that will lead to fulfilling the goals that you set? So I don't think it's like a self or an identity. It's just you know, it's a dream. It's a drama. It's a social soap opera. It's not real life. If you're posting or stuff about yourself, it said you have to become somebody before you can be nobody. I wouldn't agree with that. And I would say every time that you meditate, then you are experiencing being nobody. The moment you close your eyes, you know, you're not aware of your name or your appearance or your likability or your even whether you're a man or a woman or nothing. It's just the breath coming in and coming. So it's you grounding yourself in the real world. This is the real world, you know, the body and the mind. people say, "Oh, yeah, this is all very well on a meditation retreat, but what about in the real world?" As if they are qualified to talk about the real world and they know what it is. But I would counter, well, this is the real world. What happens when you're on a retreat, far more real than what happens out there. And so being able to switch between being somebody and being nobody, I think a great guarantor of mental health. And it means that because you're constantly coming back to ground base, coming back to the real world of this body and this mind, then because of that, you're not taking all these identities that you have in the world, and whether they are being a son, daughter, spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, father, mother, employer, employee, friend, all these things, are given some perspective because you're again and again and again you're coming back to that dimension of yourself that is none of those things. And when you are experiencing that dimension which is none of those things, I think you will feel that it's a lot more authentic than most of the identities that you take on. So it's not one or the other or one before the other, but it's being able to switch between the two. Okay. I practice Theravada and I'm trying to keep my meditation simple and consistent. I struggle with social anxiety slash blank mind freeze in groups and too long rumination after interactions. I'm looking for one or two very practical instructions. 1. When I notice a freeze, blank mind state, in brackets, tightness, numbness, self-consciousness, what is the best immediate step for the next 10 or 20 seconds? E.g., relax the body, return to Buddho, metta, open awareness. Secondly, after a triggering interaction, I can ruminate for hours or days. What is a simple post-event practice to prevent the mind from spiraling? 3. Do you recommend having a regular teacher for progress, or is it enough to rely on suttas and occasional Q&A? If a teacher is recommended, what is the simplest way to find appropriate guidance while living abroad? Thank you for any guidance or a pointer to it. Question 1 about an immediate next step if you freeze, blank mind in threatening social situations. First of all, the examples that you give, relaxing the body, return to Buddho, metta, those are all reasonable methods. So there's not a right method, and there may not be just for you one particular method. But having practiced all of those 4, then you can adapt to the situation, or you may find one which is particularly useful to you. So there's not like a hard and fast rule here. It would depend upon you and your personality and so on, which of those works. So you try, it's trial and error. And I think that the role of trial and error in meditation practice is much underestimated, because the rules, the techniques and the suggestions are all the starting point rather than the end point. It's not like now you've got this down. You at this situation you do this and then you do that. You have some basic guidelines, but then you fill that in by trying it out and seeing what works for you. And Some people may just come back to Buddha's help. For other people, metta. Some people just consciously relaxing the body from head. So I'm not sure for you which is the right one, but I would say none of them are wrong. But at the same time, it's not just a matter of having like a first aid kit on hand. Coming back to the root cause of this kind of anxiety, and any kind of effective strategy for dealing with something like this needs some element of the sila training and how you're acting and speaking, the training of the heart, and a training in wisdom and understanding and analysis. So, for example, just taking this our most basic theme and interest of anicca, then with a diary, writing a diary, observe when this blank state comes on. When does it come on? When does it not come on? Is there a pattern there that we can see? Is it triggered by certain people or certain places, certain experiences? Can you distinguish some certain patterns there? And can you, if you can, then can you work out like the initial sign that something is going to happen before the full-blown state appears, and then you can prevent it from happening in the first place. But seeing the changes, the subtle differences, the anicca in the state itself, in the extent to how easily it comes on, how intense it is, how long it lasts. This gives you some purchase, some way of seeing its anatta and its not self quality, but also to see whether there are specific kinds of wrong thinking, as I spoke about last night, a certain way of thinking about yourself, thinking about other people, thinking about life, which you've just taken on, and it's like a virus, like I was talking about, that I'm not good enough virus, that, and to expose that and start to work on that. After a triggering interaction, I can ruminate for hours or days. What is a simple post-event practice to prevent the mind from spiraling? Again, it's not just a post-crisis first aid effort here. It's a daily, regular practice of mindfulness and bringing the mind back to the object again and again. So every time you bring your mind back to the breath, it's as if you're strengthening the mindfulness muscle. And you find over the course of time that you get distracted or you get pulled into that kind of rumination less often. When you do, it lasts a shorter period, and it's easier for you to extract yourself from it. And so if you're doing this again and again, this like days of rumination starts off, it has a beginning. And if you're there right at the beginning, then the mindfulness, if you've developed it consistently, will be strong enough to prevent you falling into it. If this is like hours and days, this is not just a normal level of mental incapacity, and you might need to, maybe you are already speaking with a therapist and having some more kind of one-on-one counseling. Do you recommend having a regular teacher for progress, or is it enough to rely on suttas and occasional Q&A? You don't really have the choice. I mean, there's not that many teachers around. I think that having a daily practice, which includes some chanting, some meditation, some sitting, some walking, perhaps some academic study, some exercise like yoga or qigong, then visiting teachers every now and again, or having kalyana mitta that you can share experiences with and ask for advice. That's a reasonable way to progress. And if there is an opportunity to come on retreats like this, where you can practice in a little bit more intense way and have opportunity to question the teacher, then that's ideal. Okay. Dear Ajahn, for someone of moderate natural abilities with good consistent effort and good instruction and good conditions, how long would it take to achieve first jhana? Is this even a meaningful question? It would probably take longer than you would like, but not as long as you think. Another question about biography. Okay, no. There's not just on my own behalf. Ajahn Kowilo Ajahn Nisapo is now starting a monastery in Seattle, and he's been keen on writing biography of Lumpur Pasano for years, and he's been collecting information and writing and preparing, and I'm an advisor, and I say, whoever it is, no matter how well respected, I don't agree with publishing a biography before they're 84 years old, the seventh cycle. That should be, monks who are having their autobiographies at 50 or 60. I find this kind of not really in line with our tradition. So that's my take on biographies and autobiographies. After a while of my meditation, I feel that my breath and my body disappear. It is also separate from each other. Kindly advise. Whether it's correct or not, because it is not, in case it is not, please advise the right one. In case it's correct, kindly advise to develop my practice. Okay, a little bit unclear. As the breath, as we give attention to the breath, it becomes more subtle, and there come a point where it's so subtle that it's imperceptible, and the breath disappears, and the sense of the physical body disappear. So the usual reaction to that is either kind of fear or excitement, and both of which are obstacles. So whatever you're being aware of, is you're being aware of your mind wandering and drifting and coming back, or you're being aware of the body. And what you want to sustain and uphold is this equanimous awareness. It's like this. There's no body, no no breath. Just curious, interested, just there with whatever's happening. And then it will change by itself. And after I'm sure the questioner knows this, that after some time, then there's a perception of the body again, and a perception of the breath again, and some very subtle mental activity resumes. And it's at this point that the mind is ready for vipassana, for investigation of the five khandhas. This is the whole point. The samadhi, at whatever level it's taken, is to prime the mind so that it is able to see and penetrate the three characteristics, and beginning with impermanence. And so once the mind has been past that very elevated and profound state, when it emerges from that, naturally, as it will, no fear of that, then that's not the time to try to get back into the state or think, that's the end of my meditation, that was a good one, I hope I can do that again. But now is the time to continue with the contemplation of body and mind without that kind of mental interference, and with the mind extremely bright and stable, and it's got like a laser-like quality to the contemplation. For meditators who are always drowsy or having a sluggish mind, may I know what they can do when they practice anapanasati? Is anapanasati suitable for them? It depends, really. I would say if you have real problems with drowsiness, as I mentioned before, it may not be related directly to the meditation. And for example, if some meditators are practicing in order to experience inner peace, and so as soon as the mind becomes relaxed, they just grasp at that relaxation and assume that that's the inner peace that they've been moving towards, but it's not. It's a counterfeit peace. And the mindfulness is abandoned, and the mind becomes sleepy. So, for some people and some meditators, then it's not a matter of anapanasati. Or if you have that same kind of attitude, then the same thing will happen when you start to get relaxed. So you have to see the danger of relaxation, and not take that as your goal, or say, this is good enough, and just sort of lay back and enjoy it. So that's a mara, that's an obstacle to practice. Some people have, as I say again, very low resistance to any kind of discomfort or conflict. Again, and here we can see why patient endurance is stressed so much, because if you lack that resilience and ability to be present to the uncomfortable, then in meditation, if it's frustrating, or else particularly if there are some upsetting thoughts or memories coming into the mind, things that you can't deal with effectively, then the response of many people is just to shut down. It's like put on the off switch, which is to go into dullness, to anesthetize the mind. In social situations, it's like the stonewalling kind of. I don't want to hear about. I don't want to. So that kind of, I don't want to have to deal with this right now. That can lead to the dullness and sleepiness of mind. It's an unwillingness to bear with the present moment. Otherwise, and again to repeat something I said yesterday, dullness and drowsiness can just become a habit, even if the original reasons for them to take hold of your mind are not so present anymore. And in that case, you have to take more radical steps. The suggestion yesterday was just like reboot and just start meditating for very short periods of time, setting a timer for 5 minutes, where your main goal is to meditate without sleepiness for 5 minutes, and then gradually and very patiently, and patience is the word, is to gradually increase the time so that you get a new habit of being mindful and present without sleepiness. If you're going to persist with Anapanasati, then I would suggest, if you're much given to sleepiness, that's your dominant kind of most dominant hindrance, then meditating on the area between the nose tip and the lip is not so good, and it's better to focus on the chest area or the abdomen, so you're getting out of your head if you're very much cerebral person, and focusing in the head is just encourages too much dullness. So if you really want to persist, then maybe change the point of reference or do more of this zooming in, zooming out practice. Otherwise, try some other meditations, and whether it's the meditation on the body or death meditation or recollection of Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. Try stuff out, and what what you should be aiming at for is some sense of interest and enthusiasm and enjoyment. If it's still persistent, of course, can meditate with your eyes open, put effort into your posture, and all fails, then I would suggest just concentrating on walking meditation, making that your main practice, and just doing much less sitting in the time you have, and putting much more emphasis on walking. I don't think I'm going to get through all these questions, but they might all be asking if I'm going to have my biography written, so might be able to discard a few of them. There are Theravada teachers who taught a step-by-step approach to meditation, going through all the jhanas experience, seeing kalapas, seeing dependent origination, etc., before entering Sotapanna. May I have Ajahn comments on this approach? Well, as the teacher and the teachers in this tradition have many years of experience and are highly regarded and have many disciples, then one can only conclude that this is a path which certainly some people are benefiting from and being able to follow well. So it's not the way that I practiced, or the way that I teach, or the way that Ajahn teaches, but that doesn't mean that it's not a legitimate way to practice. And as I say, it's highly influential style of practice these days, and many monks and nuns and lay people are very devoted to this path of practice. So if you feel feel drawn to this way of practice, and there's nothing wrong with it at all as far as I can see. It's more finding something that kind of resonates with the path that you feel most drawn to. How do you think your command of English, rich languages English, has affected your exposition and perhaps even understanding of the Dhamma? Yeah, I don't know. I find I've kind of reunited with the English language after most of my adult life speaking Thai and enjoying speaking Thai. People used to criticize me a lot. Why is it Ajahn Chah's talks in English are nowhere near as good, as much fun as in Thai? Why is his Thai talk so much more enjoyable? This is what people used to say, and I just feel more natural speaking Thai for such a long time. And it's just in the last few years that I've started speaking English a lot more and really enjoying it and appreciating English language so much. So this touches on a very interesting academic question, which we don't have time to go into here, is whether or not your vocabulary and the concepts which are expressed by your vocabulary determine or condition what you can be aware of. So if there's no concept of something in your language, can you experience the reality that concept is pointing to? We don't really have enough time to go into this, but one on a more kind of everyday level, it's really I find fascinating words in each language which you can't really translate. You find a word and you say, well, it's not really, and so like Western monks, when we speak English, then we often have a lot of Thai words like sprinkled through our speech, which is kind of irritating to people who don't know Thai. But I'm sure it's the same in Singapore and Malaysia and so on. You just have certain words that other languages can't quite grasp. In Thai, this is a kind of a Buddhist word, is Toraman. Okay, so the word Toraman, the modern use of that word basically means to torment or torture. But it is in old Thai from 100, 200 years ago, and this is the meaning which the Ajahn Mun and his disciples adopted, means something like I was talking about yesterday, as like pushing people to do things they don't want or to experience discomfort in order to understand the Dhamma, to understand how defilements create dukkha. It's not the heat and the mosquitoes, it's because you don't want the heat and the mosquitoes. But you have to be out there with the heat and the mosquitoes before you can truly appreciate that point. And as you probably find it very difficult to motivate yourself to do that, this is where teachers come in. And they stretch you, they make you do things that you didn't think you could do. And while you're doing them, you don't really appreciate it, but you do afterwards. And so this is the verb to toraman, to train by making the disciple uncomfortable. So this idea of training and torment and torture and so it's like if Western monks are talking about how was it yesterday that drive down to it's real Toraman, you see, so you use that word as an English word. So Thai word that hard to translate fully is like sanuk, isn't it? You can say fun, but it doesn't really capture the whole idea of sanuk. So words definitely, I think, affect how you understand things. And teaching in education circles, it's we often talk about the importance of giving children an emotional vocabulary to be able to distinguish between different emotions. Because lacking that, you tend to group emotions all together as basically feeling bad. And then when you have like one thing called feeling bad, you tend to have one remedy like eating or drinking or something. So being able to tease apart, this is sadness, or this is anger, this is this. So you have a much more nuanced understanding of what's going on based upon a vocabulary, based upon words, that can help you to be more mindful. Yeah. So without those words and that being taught how to distinguish between different emotions and giving them names and labels, then it's much more easy just to be carried away by negative emotion as just, here we go again, this bad feeling that's always arising within me. Again, a very interesting, I think, complex topic which I don't have time to talk about today. So this question is about this screenplay and India, so I covered that this morning. I have 2 children, aged 3 and 7 years old. They are both wonderful, kind, loving, energetic. The older child has a lack of attention and patience when it comes to issues that he finds boring, like homework and eating. It's more obvious when he finishes his allocated iPad time. I know it sounds normal for kids, but how would you recommend introducing Buddhism or meditation to help these issues at such a young age, where they can understand or actively do it continuously by their own choice? Thank you very much. Again, another huge question. Again, I think with introducing children to some kind of meditation at a young age is very good. Simply to, they say, to create a bigger resistance or resilience in the face of nothing much going on, because that being like very easily bored, is because you've been conditioned to find something more stimulating the moment that you feel dissatisfied with what's going on right now. And instead of recognizing this is a feeling of dissatisfaction with an absence of stimulation, you create this idea of boring. That there, like boring is a property of of something going on, as if it's out there, and you're being oppressed by this thing out there, but it's not. It's your own creation. You're saying, I want more from the present moment that I'm receiving, and if I'm not getting it here, I want to get it somewhere else. So teaching by example is most important, and modeling these qualities that we want to see in our children. And I gave an example, I think, a couple of days ago of games like sit and watch the ice cream melt for 30 seconds or 60 seconds or however, and just introducing this small periods where you can't do what you want to do immediately, and learning how to wait and seeing that as a positive thing. When in the screenplay there are some subtle references to Hermann Hesse's Siddhartha, which was one of the first books on spiritual matters I read as a teenager, and many people of my generation. And for those of you not familiar with it, he's like a sadhu, and he has a best friend, and he decides to leave the holy life and explore the world. And so he applies for a job, and the merchant looks at him and says, well, what can you do? You know, you just spend all your time chanting Om and sitting under a tree and with your eyes closed, you know, what use are you to me? And he says, I can think, I can wait, I can fast. You know, those are the three qualities. And the merchant is intrigued enough to take him on. And he finds, this young man, he has these qualities where he has this stillness, and he can be patient with negotiations and with difficult people and difficult situations. He knows how to think and to analyze. He knows how to do without the things that he enjoys when it's necessary. He doesn't feel angry or upset by that. And so, oh yes, he can think, he can wait, he can fast. So, you know, having that as a goal, to be someone who can wait. Can you wait? You know, can you wait without getting upset or irritable? And little by little, not making a big thing out of it, but it's just this sense of when you want something, you don't have the right to get it immediately. Just a simple concept like that can, and making it a point of pride. Yeah, I could sit and watch ice cream for 60 seconds before I have to take a spoonful, and then, it's kind of like, wow, geng mak. It's like you can do that. Which is your favorite sutta and why? Goodness, I really can't say. I mean, there's so many. There's hundreds and hundreds, aren't there? No, I reread the suttas regularly, and you know, it's every time you come to a sutta, then you find something fresh and a new angle, maybe, or it's reminding you of something. And certain times I might be more focused on looking for suttas dealing with a particular topic, but there's not, you know, I can't say there's one sutta that stands out, except, yes, maybe in terms of my own introduction to Buddhism, that the Anattalakkana Sutta, and I've always been drawn and fascinated by teachings on anatta, and that was the first sutta where this teaching is fully elaborated. So if I have to go with one, I think that would be the one. Here we go again. About this, I am not good enough. Is this conceit? Yes, absolutely. I have this fear that what if I am not good enough is true? Can you kindly advise me how not to fall into this trap? I have to repeat, I don't know what it means. What does it mean? I am not good enough to what? And so I would say, are you good enough to do something kind for another person? Are you good enough to keep the 5 precepts? Are you good enough to try to abandon the unwholesome and develop the wholesome? Are you good enough to learn about the way things are? If you're good enough for all those things, everything else you don't have to worry. Okay. It's a fundamental wrong way of looking at life, and this is why I call it a virus. Tu Tan Ajahn for tirelessly teaching us. I'm feeling tired actually. No, just joking. In the Metta Sutta, unburdened with duties actually means we shouldn't take up too much responsibilities, or we should not be burdened by all responsibilities we've taken. Yeah, it means not. It means a bit of both. I mean, it means we're giving attention to what duties, how many duties, how sustainable our duties are, what our attitude is towards our duties. So you might not have so many duties, but you might resent them and think it's not fair, you're doing more than everybody else, or you'd be far better suited to doing something else and let somebody else do this. And so thinking about your duties, or worrying about if you get something wrong, or if you're going to be praised or going to be blamed about performing your duty, all these, you're making a duty into a burden. So 2 aspects to it. The duty itself, is it a reasonable kind of burden or reasonable kind of thing to take on, giving your physical health, your particular situation, and other things you need to see to, whether family matters or whatever, and then your attitude to the duties that you do have, and the sense of it being a burden and being heavy, then that's a sign that you're not really got that kind of balance yet. Would you share some of the most valuable lessons or experiences from your year-long retreat in darkness? My lesson was that even when you set up things for the absolutely most conducive, there are still ups and downs in practice. I am also, dear Tanjan, I am also considering ordaining in Thailand, either temporarily or permanently. What would be your advice for me as a woman? Again, I mean, it have to be said that the choices are not so many as for a man. And I think I'm going to ask Sister Jayasaro to give her thoughts on this.
Well, I was happened to be in the West, so I ordained in Amaravati, I happened to be fortunate enough in Ajahn Chah's tradition, and also I happened to have the chance to come to Thailand. I didn't plan any of this. I don't think Ajahn Jayasaro will agree if I say it just happened to me, but somehow the courses and conditions happen, ripen. So I don't think it's possible for many women to just go to the West and ordain there. A lot of factors are involved. You have to try to adapt to the culture. It's not easy, I have to say. And it's quite costly, if you're not already in the West. So there are a lot of expenses involved. But if you have the opportunity, personally, I find what I'm offered and what I have been going through in Amaravati was extremely useful. I can't say for everybody, but for me, it's tough, but it's as good as it gets for me. And coming to Thailand, I have a lot of gratitude for the opportunity I have. I didn't realize it that much when I was in the West. So, a lot of gratitude to Luang Por Sumedho, Ajahn Luang Por Suchito, and of course Ajahn Chah for giving the permission for women to commit more as a samana in the West. But in Thailand, well, it depends on what you mean by ordaining, If you feel that you just want to be a hermit, living somewhere, I personally don't consider that as ordaining. I mean, you can do it as a laywoman, just build a kuti somewhere and practice on your own. For me, it's about the Sangha. So I have a community of sisters who I live with, and I will continue to connect, engage with the community because that's how I grow. Like most of the time, I'm frustrated and I don't get what I want, and I grow from that. And it wouldn't be possible for me if I were to ordain and live somewhere on my own. Having teachers are important, but nowadays with Dhamma talks and books, you can use those as your kalyana mita, but you need the sangha. You need peers. You need people you can talk to, who give you feedback. Those are extremely important. You can't see your own blind spot. And it stirs up a lot of discomfort and defilements. And that's brutal honesty for me. And that's how I see it. But in Thailand, now I'm going to put somebody else on the spotlight. Mechi Panya Siri, I find her very inspiring. So it's not about the color for me or the status or whatever you call it. I'm called Siladara, but most of the time people assume I'm a bhikkhuni because that's the only thing they know in Thailand. Bhikkhuni, Mechi, probably. But if you try to relinquish and renounce internally before you even consider taking on the robe, I think that's more important. It's not just wearing the robe and call yourself a samana. It's more than that. It's really see the danger of samsara, getting weary of it, and really try to commit your life to something that you feel is valuable, but wholeheartedly. This path is not easy if you do it half-heartedly. Even wholeheartedly is not easy. So if you're doing half-heartedly, you've got better things to do, I think, as a human, I hope something will start up in Thailand for women and those who are in this area, like Southeast Asia, because culturally we are similar, quite similar. And just live in a community. You can see which monks you find that you can connect with, and you can consult them when you have problems. But support each other as a woman. We need the women, not the monks or the men. I got a lot of support from local women here and foreign women who come to practice here. And a lot of them aspire to be nuns. But renounce internally, see what else you can't let go before you actually let go, and find a community or kalyana mita. It doesn't have to be a big group. And then eventually, like-minded people will be drawn to your community, and then try to live together. It's really difficult for women to live together. it's not easy, but then use that as your opportunity, you see, to break through. Yeah. Ajahn, do you have time for Mechi Panyasiri to say something as well? Okay.
Mechi Panyasiri is free tomorrow morning. So maybe people are interested. You can ask her to have a session with you. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're almost out of time, and I've got this many questions to go. So I'll kind of give TikTok answers. Yesterday, you taught us that sometimes it's good to learn and feel painful, either on your legs or your body, as it's related with fear of death. It's a good way of practice. However, according to Dhamma Chakkapavatana Sutta, chanted yesterday, there's the phrase Yo Chayang Atta Kilamatanu Yoko, saying that self-deprivation or self-torment is painful and not the way of the nobleman. I'm confused, what should I do? Okay, so at the time of the Buddha, the most prevalent, the most common way of practice was based upon this idea that the spirit is imprisoned by the body and the body's addiction to pleasure, and so by tormenting the body and weakening the body through fasting and all these different practices, then you can release the heart, you can release the mind. And it was this kind of practice based upon this kind of thinking, this kind of belief, that the Buddha criticized as being ultimately fruitless and not something that will ever lead to enlightenment. So it's self-mortification for its own sake, or self-mortification for some mistaken ideal. I mean, this kind of idea is throughout history, and we know it, like in many monastic tradition, non-Buddhist monastic traditions, like really excessive fasting and tormenting the body leads to images and hallucinations of holy figures, and that's the way that you can become a saint in some place. But the Buddhist tradition is saying pain is a part of human life, and we all have to experience it at some time or other, and therefore it's good to study it and learn about it. And as I say, in particular, the degree to which physical pain is attached to, is grasped onto as being self, and how negative emotions of anxiety, fear, stress, resentment, self-pity, etc., accumulate and make the physical pain far more painful than it needs to be. And that's simply looking at the pain, not trying to feel pain because it's good for you, but looking at the pain and being able to separate the physical phenomena from the mental reaction to the phenomena. This is a legitimate practice. As I said, also I think that it's not something you want to be doing too often, especially if you don't have that good samadhi, but it's not something you should never do. Every now and again, it's a good practice. Ajahn, what would be your advice for someone who is not quite sure about their life path, career, interpersonal, Dhamma has brought much light and refuge for me, but the worldly life feels like a limbo for a while now. P.S. There's no strong intention for ordination yet. I am female. There's something recommend you may look at is a website, an organization recently established called Moral Ambition. And the idea that the ideas of success and ambition have been twisted to very materialistic levels, and that it's time to reawaken ambition in leading one's life in a way that contributes to the well-being of the many. And finding a lively, if you're single and you don't have financial commitments for, as many do, for caring for parents, and if you're financially independent reasonably, and you're practicing Dhamma where your needs are very frugal, then that means that you can look for work with charitable foundations and NGOs and find some work that you are able to express yourself and to use the skills and abilities that you have, but which you feel is compatible with Dhamma practice, or even enriches your Dhamma practice, or at least is not undermining it. So one of the developments in Western culture and spread out through the world is this kind of deification of work. It's like making work like a religion. And people, I found this really weird once. I had this young man who I'd known since he was a boy, and he went off to college in America. He got a degree, and he was working for this very high-powered business, and then he'd say, "Oh, Ajahn, I work until 11 o'clock at night, 12 o'clock at night, and I'm doing like 80 hours or something a week." And I thought he was asking for sympathy, and he was boasting, basically. It's like a sign of, I work, 16 hours a day, and somehow that's virtuous or something to be proud of. I didn't never have got it, but this movement whereby work has become like the primary expression of self-respect, of your success as a human being, is measured by the work you do. I often get to know somebody. First, obvious question you ask, what do you do for a living? And so many times I see people freeze like this, like really super insecure. It's like, is this going to be up to the mark? Is this going to be good enough for Ajahn? Something like this. I just interested in what you do for a living. I'm not going to put you on some kind of status level. It's kind of interesting how people live in the world. So work's just work. It doesn't have to be super meaningful. Or if you can make your living in a way which is like right livelihood. Where you can be financially comfortable and meet all your responsibilities, and also feel it's, as I say, supportive of enriching your Dhamma practice, great. But not everyone, for sure, can find that kind of livelihood. But at least something which is not in conflict with Dhamma practice. But if you can find work in which you are contributing to the welfare of others, I think that does give something which take you out that sense of limbo that the questioner is referring to. During the meditation retreat, I cherished and appreciated every teaching and looking forward to use them in practice when I get back in routine life. But in reality, what's that? But in reality, rarely that I ru tao tan doing, still do and say what I shouldn't, and felt regret in many times. Please advise. Well, now you have, they have that word as a recollection, and again keep coming back to the patterns that you see, and when you are particularly unskillful and impulsive, and what led up to that. And can you see any patterns there? And can you do something about those patterns? And if you're scattered and you're not meditating and you've got too much going on in your life and you're rushing about here and there and you're stressed, and you have that kind of tendency to be impulsive, then I would say it's quite likely that that's going to continue. So certain changes in life, and I would say basic principle is simplify wherever you can. Okay, so having all, say, living in the world and families and parents and children and so on, you're not able to simplify in the way, say, that a monastic can, but where you can, in what areas you can, try to simplify. What is the deeper meaning of the phrase Dhamma is beautiful in the beginning, the middle, and the end? I'm pretty sure there must be kind of pages in the Visuddhimagga commentary about this. But here's my take. First of all, the word is kalyana. Okay, so it's not exactly beautiful. I mean that's somewhat questionable translation. So it's kalyana is the same word as like kalyana mitta. So it means good, uplifting. It means something that is beautiful. It's not bad, is it? It's that sense of the majesty of the Dhamma, the impeccable, like you look at the Dhamma teachings, it's like this incredible diamond, every single facet. When you look underneath, you look at this, it's just flawless, it's just incredible. And that's Kalyana. And so throughout the teaching, so when we say the beginning, the middle, the end, we can talk about sila, samadhi, panya, or various ways we can divide the teaching into stages, and saying what at every stage from the first beginning stage right to the ultimate stage, there is this incredible sense of integrity and beauty and flawlessness and perfection to the Dhamma of the Lord Buddha. So I think that may be quite a beautiful ending to the Q&A. So I apologize to everybody whose questions I've not answered.
อันดมยังโอวาทกถาสาธุกรังทธามเสสา